Hello and welcome to my counseling corner. My name is Riti from Counselling, and I'm a registered therapist in BC. Today, we've got Gurjit joining us again for some more controversial, maybe, but some fantastic topics to discuss. Gurjit, let's talk a little bit about anger today. And anger obviously is a root cause of many problems within the families, in the individual. It causes negative energy to be inside us constantly. So let's talk more about anger. How would you describe it?
So anger is an emotion just like sadness, shame, fear, lots of other different emotions. Anger is not a bad emotion. It's what we do with it that can become bad. So there is no such thing as a bad emotion.
Right.
So anger is actually what we call a secondary emotion or a surface emotion. It's not a primary. What happens is we use anger to cover other emotions. The way I describe it is, imagine as a person is growing up, all the pain they experience, all the sadness, fear, shame, could be feelings of abandonment, betrayal, neglect, rejection. It affects that person, it affects that child as they're growing up. But if they're not taught how to deal with them, they become too much to handle. So we start bringing anger in, or it can start as frustration or irritation. Those
Mhm.
are all forms of anger. They're just at different levels.
Yes.
So anger is more, what's the word, acceptable in some cases, especially in, we've done a whole series on traditions. But
Mhm.
when we look at cultures around the world, anger is more accepted to a degree. So people go to anger and they use anger as a driving force. Well, if I'm not angry about something, I'm not going to have the passion to follow it through and real see it to the end. Well, you know what? I'm going to be angry because I don't want to feel this pain inside of me because that hurts too much.
Mhm.
So this is where anger comes out. And as I mentioned earlier, anger itself is not a bad emotion. It's what we do with it.
Yeah. But
So
it creates fear in others, though, as well.
it does. Now that's when
Sometimes
it's
that's what
taken.
you do with anger.
Yes, anger is also used for control
Yes.
by people.
Mhm.
Now, when we look at, if you see someone who's angry all the time, and any counselor you talk to will be able to kind of explain this to you. Anyone you see that's angry all the time is someone who's not willing to face those inner fears, these insecurities or emotional issues that they've been carrying. So they will just use anger as the back off, and stay away from me, or I'm going to control you. That's where it comes from, right? And it's not healthy. And as you said earlier, it impacts the person themselves, because when you have anger, what happens? Your body tightens. Everybody has different symptoms. If they think about the body, you can get sweaty hands, your heart will race, you can get hot. You see some cartoons where they've got the volcanic explosions out of their head. That's basically what happens. Your body all of a sudden just gets to the point it cannot hold what's in there in anymore, and it
Right.
comes out.
Mhm.
When aggression is added to that, you get assaults, you get people who will hit others, though the
Mhm.
verbal manipulation, uh, if say it's a guy with a big booming voice, well, if their voice is really deep and strong, once they get angry, well, that's going to scare anybody.
That'll shut everybody up, pretty much.
Exactly. But it's not healthy,
No.
right? If we do not deal with that anger, we'll never know what's causing it underneath it. I always imagine it like a ball of paint, and this is the anger on top. We got
Yes.
to deal with this for this to start subsiding.
Mhm.
And anger itself, we'll talk about anger management techniques to help you calm. But at the end of the day, if you are, whoever's watching this, if
Mhm.
you are, or someone who's always angry, that is an indication that there is something going on underneath that
Right.
they are not facing.
They're
And this is where they need
suppressing
to get.
their real emotions, basically.
Exactly.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So when
Anger
you suppress
suppresses real emotions.
real emotions, and when you're suppressing those emotions, you're also very, really dishonest with yourself to
Yes.
what's really going on with you.
Yes.
I think being honest with yourself is really important. Even if you messed up, you screwed up something, own it, accept it.
Yeah.
But that's what we do. We don't want to own what we did or accept what really happened. Instead, we show anger just to control,
Yes.
to show. Yeah.
And control, deflect,
Right.
safeguard, defend. There's so many different reasons for the anger.
Now,
But
would it be a coping mechanism?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, it's a coping mechanism because we're not looking, and as you said, we're not being honest with ourselves as to what's really going on inside us, right? So we're going to go to what's ever easier,
Mhm.
right? So um, when we look at someone who's very angry, we got to look at the fact that there are underlying issues, but they've got to be willing to face them. They've got to be willing to, first of all, admit them.
Mhm.
And a lot of angry people will not even admit that there's anything else going on. They're just angry, or they've observed anger as they've grown up.
Mhm.
We've done a lot of videos where we talked about children learning through observation other than, from what they're taught.
Yeah.
But when it comes to how to handle anger, now, if you see someone who's angry all the time,
Mhm.
this is what gets people into trouble. They get violent, they get abusive, as I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
If it's a situation where there's an assault, of course, the police would get involved. If they're charged, then the majority of the time, the court will rule that they need to go to anger management classes or support groups or something. So here's the thing, if you already know you're an angry person, um, you know, take accountability.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's help out there. You don't have to do all of this alone to help touch upon what's really causing the anger. Because once you understand what's causing the anger and you work on that, the anger, as I said, will subside by itself. And it will make your life and the lives of those around you a
Mhm.
lot better.
Definitely.
So we're talking about some anger management techniques. If
Yeah.
what this is one thing I say to people, and especially in couples too. First of all, you got to look at your body. When your body's giving you the signs, either you're getting tense, or some people say, my hands get sweaty, or my
Mhm.
heart's racing, or I feel really hot, or I can really feel that
Feel
tension.
that tension.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That is your body going, hey, I'm trying to tell you something's happening here, so we got to pay attention.
Mhm.
That is when, if we pay attention, we can go, okay, I'm getting angry. I'm going to leave this situation. I'm going to leave this area till I calm down.
Mhm.
If you're trying to have a conversation with someone who is angry, what happens? You raise your voice, they raise their voice. It just goes like this, and everyone's screaming at each other. And guess what? Nobody's actually hearing anyone,
Yeah.
right? So if you're trying to get a point across to someone, they're not getting it. Don't just get angry and raise your voice, because if they're not getting it, they're not going to get it if you're shouting at them either.
Mhm.
You got to calm yourself down, right? If you're in a relationship and this is happening a lot and you're both getting angry, you got to both go away and use some calming techniques, such as taking deep breaths, describing things around you to keep you present, counting backwards from 100 slowly. That brings you back in the moment. It helps you to calm down. So,
Writing.
uh,
Writing as well.
yeah, oh, writing, exactly. We want to get to, what we want to do first is get them to a point where that anger is subsiding. Then we can go to things like writing
Mhm.
and reflecting on, okay, what made me angry? Now, here's the key. It's not, what did that person do to make me angry? What was it in me that caused me to get angry when this person did whatever they did? Remember, you got to own your emotions. You got to take responsibility for the energy you carry,
Yeah.
right? It's not someone else's responsibility to do that,
Mhm.
right? It's your own responsibility to do that. So we got to switch that question around. What in me is causing me to get angry or upset? What's triggered me? And this is what it is. It's triggers.
It's triggers. Yes.
It's triggers, and the trigger is touching that pain that the angry person does not want to see or
Mhm.
touch or
And
deal.
one point actually on that, just going back to it, was also if somebody has seen someone else. So for a child seeing their father or mom as an angry person all the time, they have seen that raising your voice gets the work done.
Mhm.
So that becomes a fear, and that becomes their norm as
Yes.
well.
Yes. And that child will take that behavior to the school,
Mhm.
whether it's kindergarten, grade 1, 2, wherever it is. And
Friends.
the other children will see that and copy as well.
Correct.
So this isn't just a one person issue. This spreads. It's like that ripple effect in a pond. So it does, you need to take responsibility and accountability for it. When you have someone who is always angry about life and blames the world or carries a chip on their shoulder or just stays in victimhood the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's because of underlying issues. They've
Yes.
been hurt in the past. We're all human. We all get hurt.
Yes.
There isn't
Absolutely.
a person on this planet, in my experience, that hasn't been through some form of trauma. And, we did a whole video on trauma, but trauma is something that affects your survival, whether you're very young or it doesn't matter what age you're at. But it needs to be worked through. Otherwise, it will fester and it creates things like anger and other emotions that you can't control after a while.
Right.
And that's what also leads to addictions.
Absolutely. And I
Yes.
think accepting is so important, that I am angry. Where is this anger coming from? Instead of blaming 10 different people for you being angry, find out exactly, as you said, look through your body. It's almost like assess yourself first. Why am I getting angry? Because it's easier to blame others for your anger.
Yes.
But maybe there's something going on within you, or you might have done something,
Yeah.
but you are just covering it up with your anger.
Yes.
It's important to reflect again, see within yourself first,
Yes.
and then talk.
Right.
Talk to a therapist. They will ask you
Absolutely.
questions.
You got to talk to someone who can help you through whatever the underlying issues are.
Mhm.
If you're working with, if you're in a couple or a relationship or in a family, you got to. One suggestion is set the stage with everybody. If there's a lot of people that get angry, or one or two people, just say, "Hey, from now on, if I get angry or if you get angry, I say we take a 30-minute timeout or a 10-minute, 50, whatever works.
Mhm.
We're going to take that time out. So when I'm walking away because I'm getting angry, don't follow me and keep going because that just aggravates things. Now, the
Mhm.
person who's following this other person and keeps going has their own issues they're not dealing with because they want to be heard. They're getting angry.
Yeah.
So if the stage is set from the beginning, whoever's involved can go leave the room, go
Mhm.
for a walk, take some time out, but you must come back to talk about what happened
What happened?
to get closure on the issue. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I walk away when I'm angry," and I think that's great. And I'm like, "That's awesome." But when do you go back to talk about it? Well, no, I don't do that.
Yes.
I feel better. Everyone feels better, so we just keep going.
Hmm.
Well, what happens to the issue that you were arguing about? It doesn't get resolved, so it festers, festers, festers.
Hmm.
Next time you get angry, boom, what happens? Volcano erupts, and it
Yeah.
all comes out again.
Hmm.
This is where when someone's angry or arguing,
Hmm.
they're not always focusing on the issue at hand. They bring up a whole bunch of stuff from the past too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yes.
Okay. Mm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just gonna add there, once you do calm yourself, reduce that anger, there are many other tools you can use to do that reflection. What is it in me? The
Mhm.
journaling, the writing, or talking to the therapist, or whatever it is you need to do before you can go back and find closure with the person who you were angry at or who was angry at you.
Definitely. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing some of the steps and techniques as well that can help others with their anger. Uh, for this is all the time we have for today's topic, but thank you so much, Gurjit, for joining me.
Thank you for having me again.